They did not respond to commands in Arabic to surrender, and they continued to threaten the force. They were then engaged by the raid force and killed. There were 4 women and 1 man. After this engagement, and once established inside the compound, U.S. forces discovered Baghdadi hiding in a tunnel. When capture at the hands of U.S. forces was imminent, Baghdadi detonated a bomb he wore, killing himself and 2 young children that were with him. The number 2 is a change. We originally thought there were 3 children with him, and this is the number we originally reported up the chain of command. We now know the number to be 2 based on subsequent debriefing. A total of 6 ISIS members died on the objective. 4 were women, and there were 2 men, including Baghdadi. This is in addition to the 2 children killed by Baghdadi as he blew himself up. Let me emphasize again that 11 children were protected by the assault force, and 2 men on the objective were detained by the assault force, and they were extracted with the force. After Baghdadi's murder-suicide, our assault force cleared significant debris from the tunnel and secured Baghdadi's remains for DNA identity confirmation, which were flown with the assault force back to the staging base. Following collection of samples for formal DNA analysis, Baghdadi's remains were buried at sea in accordance with the law of armed conflict within 24 hours of his death. While the assault force was securing the remains, they also secured whatever documentation and electronics we could find, which was substantial. The assault force then left the compound and returned to their helicopters with the 2 detainees that I've already mentioned. After our forces were safely off the objective, U.S. forces employed precision standoff munitions to destroy the compound and its contents. Let's go to the next video, please. So what you'll observe are U.S. standoff munitions striking the compound. For those of you that may have seen before and after pictures of the compound, it looks pretty much like a parking lot with large potholes right now. The operation was exquisitely planned and executed. It demonstrates the United States' global reach and our unwavering commitment to destroy ISIS, bring its leaders to justice, and to protect America and others from people like Baghdadi. The mission was a difficult, complex, and precise raid that was executed with the highest level of professionalism and in the finest tradition of the U.S. military. Since there is a significant interest in military working dogs, I wanted to provide a little background information on this fine canine. Next photo, please. And actually, let's go back a moment. Before I actually go to the dog, I would just like to show you the before and after pictures of the raid compound. You can see the way it looked before, and you can see the way it looks, the way it looked afterwards. So it's pretty clear the success of the standoff munitions that we employed to ensure that it would not be a shrine or otherwise memorable in any way. It's just another piece of ground. So let's go to the dog picture. U.S. Special Operation Command military working dogs are critical members of our forces. These animals protect U.S. forces, save civilian lives, separate combatants from non-combatants, and immobilize individuals who express hostile intent. This dog is a 4-year veteran of the SOCOM Canine program and has been a member of approximately 50 combat missions. He was injured by exposed live electrical cables in the tunnel after Baghdadi detonated his vest beneath the compound. I will also note he has been returned to duty. Finally, I would like to address the DNA analysis that was conducted to confirm Baghdadi's identity. The final slide, please. As you can see, the Defense Intelligence Agency conducted the analysis and compared DNA from the remains taken from the compound with an on-file sample taken when Baghdadi was at Camp Bucca prison in Iraq in 2004. The analysis showed a direct match between the samples and produced a level of certainty that the remains belonged to Baghdadi of 1 in 104 septillion, which is certainly beyond a shadow of a doubt. In closing, I would like to acknowledge that despite Baghdadi's death, we will not forget the victims of the atrocities he directed and inspired since 2014. U.S. Central Command remains focused on the enduring defeat of ISIS and will remain vigilant against all terrorist organizations in the region who threaten the United States, our partners, and our allies. I'd like to express my sincere appreciation for the professionalism of the men and women who made this operation a success. This was a true interagency effort, so I commend our partners across the U.S. government. The individuals who planned and conducted this mission are quiet professionals focused on their mission above glory or recognition. Committed people did hard, risky work, and they did it well. I have a few minutes to answer questions. And Jonathan, over to you.
Lita?
General McKenzie, with the death of Baghdadi, can you just give us a sense of what the U.S. counter-ISIS fight is going to look like? Are you seeing leaders start to emerge? And just as a related, the troops are now moving into Deir ez-Zor. Can you tell us how they're going to supplement that counter-ISIS mission and explain about how they're going to be protecting the oil?
Sure, absolutely. Let's start with ISIS. ISIS is first and last an ideology, so we're under no illusions that it's going to go away just because we kill Baghdadi. It will remain. Suspect at the highest levels they'll be a little disrupted. It will take them some time to reestablish someone to lead the organization, and during that period of time, their actions may be a little bit disjointed. They will be dangerous. We suspect they will try some form of retribution attack, and we are postured and prepared to, and we're postured and prepared for that. But we should recognize that, again, since it's an ideology, you're never going to be able to completely stamp it out. And in fact, our definition of long-term success against ISIS and other entities like ISIS is not the complete absence of that ideology, but rather its existence at a level where local security forces, wherever in the world it exists, can deal with it. There's no international connective tissue. There's no ability to attack our homeland, and local forces, perhaps with training and some assistance, perhaps without those things, is going to be able to suppress those entities as they go forward. We don't see a bloodless future because, unfortunately, this ideology is going to be out there, but we think there's a way to get to a point where it's going to be less and less effective over time. So the second part of your question was about Deir ez-Zor. What we want to do is ensure that ISIS is not able to regain possession of any of the oil fields that would allow them to gain income going forward. So we've got forces at Deir ez-Zor. That is, we have brought in some reinforcements there. We'll await further decisions of the U.S. government about how that plan is going to look in the long term. And I wouldn't want to get ahead of the Secretary of Defense in describing that. But as of right now, we have secured the oil fields at Deir ez-Zor, generally east of the Euphrates River, in the vicinity of Conoco and Green Village, for those of you that follow the details on the ground.
Phil?
General, could you confirm that Baghdadi, his final moments, there was the president said that he was whimpering and crying in his final moments, and also, could you give us any better sense? You talked about a substantial electronics recovered from the site. Could you elaborate a bit on what that means?
Sure. So let me start with the second part. No, I can't tell you anything about what we took off the site. You'll appreciate that. We're going to exploit that, and we expect it to help us as we go forward. So now about Baghdadi's last moments. I can tell you this. He crawled into a hole with two small children and blew himself up while his people stayed on the ground. So you can deduce what kind of person it is based on that activity. So that would be just my empirical observation of what he did. I'm not able to confirm anything else about his last seconds. I just can't confirm that one way or another.
All right. Louis?
Sir, were there reinforcements? Did any other ISIS personnel try to approach that position? And was there fire that was exchanged? There's footage of a white van that was riddled with bullets that was right next to the scene.
Sure. So there were no other ISIS forces in the area. We are completely confident of that. He had been up there for an extended period of time hiding. There were other militant groups in the area that probably did not know he was there. Once they saw the helicopters land and begin to operate, they began to flow toward it. But they were not flowing to reinforce him. They were flowing toward what they thought was perhaps a Turk military operation, perhaps a Russian military operation, perhaps an American military operation. They didn't know. So the white van that you talk about was one of the vehicles that displayed hostile intent, came toward us, and it was destroyed, in addition to the video that I just shared with you of the fighters on the ground that were addressed by the gunships.
Do you know how many casualties there may have been?
So, we don't. Out there, it's going to be hard to know. We use the figure of about 10 to 15, but we really don't know for sure, and I don't know that we're ever going to know that because we're not going to go back out there and count.
Jennifer?
Sir, you mentioned that you staged from within Syria. Was there anything about the changes on the ground in the last 2 to 3 weeks with the U.S. pulling back forces, with Turkey coming across, that caused you to accelerate this operation or change the timing of this operation? So,
Jennifer, absolutely not. We chose the time based on a variety of factors: weather, certainty, lunar data, a variety of things like that. And while it might have been convenient to use bases there, The United States military has the capability to go almost anywhere and support ourselves, even at great distances. So that was not a limiting factor. We struck because the time was about right to do it then, given the totality of the intelligence and the other situation and the other factors that would affect the raid force going in and coming out.